I think that there's something to be said about Ohio State this year that I think people are ignoring. If you would have told me Ohio State was going to be number 3 in the country in defense in August, you probably would have gotten my house.
Welcome to another episode of the Football Analytics Show. My name is Ed Fang, your host, and on this episode, I'm thrilled to have Eddie Walls on the show. He's a professional sports bettor, and he was also a college football panelist at the most recent Bet Bash conference. Among other topics, we talk about his process for betting college football as well as the NBA. He was generous enough to give us 3 college football bets that he likes. And finally, he tells us some tips about how to successfully bet college football in the month of November. The Football Analytics Show is brought to you by the Power Ranks Sports Betting Newsletter. This is a free service that strives to be 3 things. 1, valuable. 2, concise. 3, entertaining. Every week, I send out 5 Nugget Saturday, my curated list of sports betting tips, analytics, and humor. Some of the bets are my own. Others are from people that I trust. If you're looking for action on any given weekend, this is the free service for you. To check it out, go to thepowerrank.com. That is my site for better sports betting tips and information based on data and analytics. Once again, that's thepowerrank.com. Joining me on this episode of the Football Analytics Show is Eddie Walls. He is a professional sports bettor, and he also works with Right Angle Sports. Eddie, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. Good to hear you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's really good to have you on again, and I'm excited to talk to you about college football, but it's also exciting because the NBA just started as well, and I've never had a chance to talk to you about that sport. But first, we should...
I'm interested in talking about all of it. Let's do it.
Excellent. But first, this is a football analytics podcast, so I guess we should start there. Eddie, maybe just give us an overview for how you go about betting on college football. What's your process?
My process is pretty tedious compared to most. I start college football work probably the second week of January for the next season. I start compiling a list of all new coaches, all new systems, offensive coordinators, defensive coordinators. This year I had to do a lot of research on Jacksonville State and Sam Houston State because I wasn't familiar with their programs.
Right.
Then probably around February, I start compiling articles that I can read about for future seasons. Bill Connolly, who's a friend of yours apparently, which is awesome. And then probably by mid-June, mid-July, I'm working 20, 25, 30 hours a week, going over every single preview. I start a notebook, and I just write endlessly about every single team, trying to find out strengths and weaknesses for totals. Then I compile power numbers probably mid-July, and I'm ready to bet probably August 1st.
That's awesome. And then when you come into the season kind of week by week, you are both watching games, looking at box scores, making adjustments to your numbers, right?
Right. So I write every single box score by hand. I watch just about every single game that's televised at some length. I try to record on 3 different TVs every single game. So if I'm not watching it live, I can go back, watch the end games, look for explosive plays, see what's kind of fluky and what isn't. And I make a number Wednesday by gut, make a number by Thursday by actual power number. Sunday morning, I'll tweak all those numbers and have numbers ready by Sunday afternoon for openers and Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday betting.
Excellent. You talked a little bit about explosive plays. Why do you single those out when you're watching the games?
Well, I think that it's hard to make a total if your number is, let's say, your base total number for a team is 48, and they exceed that number numerous times, but then you go back and look at the box score, and they maybe only had 350 yards 2 of them were 70-yard touchdown plays. One was a pick six. So you have to be very conscious at all times about what you're making your base total based off of. Is it yardage or is it off of, touchdowns and points scored? Every Wednesday, I use a site. I track yards per play, yards per game, third down conversion percentage, and then run yardage per game, pass yardage per game, both offensive and defensive. And that'll kind of help sharpen my actual base total. I don't model, and a lot of the times models won't be able to catch something that I'm able to catch because
right.
I'm so detailed in what I'm doing. So I want to make sure that I am not making a base total too high or too low based off of just final scores. So that's kind of a process that I've been using for years and years, and it's really treated me well in the totals market for over a decade now.
Excellent. So, would you say with those explosive plays, are you kind of eliminating them, or are you trying to look for like the context of that play to figure out whether?
I'm just looking for the context of that play. If let's just take Virginia Tech last week. They had their best outing by far and away over the season against Syracuse. Was kind of a dead team. Probably wanted to get home this week after playing 4 straight weeks on the road. They were throwing flea flickers. They had like a 70-yard run right off of the bat. If I was just looking at that box score, I'm probably on Virginia Tech this week. I'm probably raising their base total. They may have just been playing a team that was completely dead, not interested in being there, which kind of what it felt like. But if I'm just doing it based off of that outing, then I'm going to be on Virginia Tech endlessly, and I'm going to be playing overs with them. They're not really an over team.
Sure.
So I just have to look for things like that. It's very important to me that I'm watching games, and I'm also making notes of situational spots like they were in last week.
For sure. I think we're kind of in the ultimate explosive play extravaganza in the NFL with Will Levis starting for the Titans last week. And I think the sharp consensus was that he was not ready to play NFL football. And he comes out and throws 3 long touchdown passes, had a fourth. And it's kind of interesting to see the markets react to that, right? Because I'm completely befuddled that Will Levis played last week, just because I didn't think that he was that good at Kentucky. Yep.
But I thought personally it was absolutely insane that he was talked about going in the first round. He ended up slipping to the second round. I don't bet NFL, but I did see the highlights, and I was like, wow.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one coming, and if he's their starter going forward, and they're going to put a lot of merit into that one game, again, that would be a spot that I would probably look to fade. I don't bet at NFL. I don't know anything about. I don't even know who he's playing next week, but I don't see that performance coming to fruition very often.
Yeah, I'm really glad to get your perspective on that. I think it's interesting with Levis because the Kentucky passing numbers last year were awful, but they were actually pretty good in 2021, and so I don't know if there was a change in context or whatnot. I feel like, he got the hype in 2021. The numbers kind of backed it up. It kind of went to crap in 2022. But that kind of same thing happened to Josh Allen as well at Wyoming. So, so he's a big...
there was an offensive coordinator switch last year at Kentucky, and then they went back this year, and they're fine on offense again. Their pass defense has been terrible, really, really bad. But, Liam Cohen... who left just for 1 year to go to the NFL, is now back at Kentucky. And it feels like, he was the catalyst of the great offense that he played in the first year. So, I don't know. I'm trying to talk NFL with you, which is kind of hilarious. It's like me trying to talk college basketball with Ed and the area. I couldn't name probably 10 coaches in the NFL if I tried. So, I'm strictly a Wong teaser bettor. I have a pretty good I have a couple of pretty good outs for it. But I check the box scores on Sunday night and check my account to see if I won or lost, and I can't really pay attention to it because I'm so busy trying to make numbers and get box scores done. I have a rabid Lions fan in the house. Mm-hmm. She wears claws and puts on a jersey and puts our dogs in Lion sweaters on Sundays. So I can tell you whether or not the Lions are doing well when they play on Sundays. They did well on Monday, and I had to hear all about it. So,
well, the Lions are having an extravagant season. I mean, I live here in southeastern Michigan, and I actually think they're pretty legitimately good. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. But I'm sure the Lions extravaganza in your house has reached a new level this season.
We got hooked on watching Hard Knocks, and that's where this started last year.
Right.
And, I mean, like, I have absolutely no idea, because we tried watching, the Hard Knocks this year with the Jets, and she now hates the Jets for whatever reason. So
right.
I'm still not convinced that she exactly knows what a first down is, because she says they made it the exclamation point. But if the Lions lost, there's a lot of cheering going on in my house.
Right. Just getting back to Will Levis really quick. At the end of 2021, you would have said Will Levis is a bad quarterback, or at least not an NFL first-round caliber quarterback?
Yeah, no, there was never a time where I looked at Will Levis, even when he had that terrific year in 2021, and said that he was on the same level as the Alabama quarterback. It's escaping my name right now. I know he got drafted number 1 this year.
Bryce Young.
He wasn't in the same conversation as Caleb Williams or even Drake May, even back then. I mean, it was clear to me that he was a good quarterback, but elite quarterback, even at the college level, not so much.
Yeah. Eddie, you also talked about, how you focus on college football, don't know much about the NFL. You focus on the NBA, don't know much about college basketball. Was that an active choice in your betting career, or does that kind of intensity of knowledge in a few sports, is that just more your personality?
No, I mean, what's really interesting about the NBA with me is that every year college football would end, and I would end up with a pretty large bankroll at the end of the year, but I would fall into kind of a depression, just working on a sport that is 8 months away. I would do some baseball work every single year to kind of keep my mind busy, but there was just always this void of like what to do. And then I got paired up. Me and Dink were partners forever, and then Joey Toons joined us, and then Waz joined us, and Waz made the introduction to Aaron Renning, who a lot of people will probably tell you is the best NBA bettor possibly ever. And we became quick friends, and I mean, just watching him work, just watching his results every single week were just fascinating. I said, I have to get involved here, and I just found that making NBA totals was an exploitable market, especially if you were hitting overnights and early in the market. And I just became just enthusiastic about it as anything else that I do. The only difference between between the NBA and college football is that you have to be in the market, every single day.
Right.
College football, I can take a Wednesday afternoon off. That's not going to happen in the NBA. It's 365, 24/7 when it's going. Injury reports are spotty at best. I mean, right now I'm waiting to see if Trae Young's going to play. I mean,
right.
6 hours before the game. I mean, it's almost unfair how hard you have to work to remain with an edge in the NBA compared to other sports. College football, my work is done for the most part by Wednesday. I can kind of relax. NBA, I'm probably going to work today from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., and then I'm probably going to have to watch 4 to 5 hours of basketball. Watching NBA is a joy for me, but it's absolutely necessity as well, especially early in the season. So, yeah, right. I don't know. I love everything about it. I just don't like the fact that I can't really take a day off, the occasional Thursday when there's a small card and stuff like that. So
Right. Well, I'm looking forward to talking a little bit more about NBA in a little bit. But first, I did want to ask you about college football totals because the rules changed. There's a running clock after first downs, more like the NFL this season. How did you go about adjusting for that and changing your totals?
It was a really scary time. Anybody that says that it wasn't is crazy. Nobody had really been, that I know of, had been around where this rule was in place. We were all kind of betting in the dark, right? I think initially we went 3 points lower, or at least I did. I went 3 points lower on every single total than what I had originally made the base of. And, I think it was very clear after week 0 or week 1 that was kind of where we were at. And I didn't have more unders than overs at the beginning of the year. thankfully, because I remember the very first week one, like the night before, just being so nervous because I had quite a few overs. And it worked out. And I think, you just have to take a week-by-week approach. Obviously, what we're seeing coaches that really like to play with the clock, especially with the head, are doing it more than ever. And then we're seeing coaches that really like to play a fast tempo, play faster than ever. So that's cool. I mean, that's exploitable. You can find those spots. They're still going on. And I think they created a bigger edge for me this year than maybe in past years. It kind of, if you had an overlean with a team, going into the season, it worked out for you for the most part.
Excellent. Eddie, is there a Week 10 college football bet that you'd be willing to share with us?
Oh, yeah, sure. I didn't actually prepare one, but let's do it. Let's see here. What do I like? I don't really think. I think that there's something to be said about Ohio State this year that I think people are ignoring. If you would have told me Ohio State was going to be number 3 in the country in defense in August, you probably would have gotten my house. But it's very clear to me. It's very clear to me that this team is now a Big Ten team. They play slow. They throw when they have to. They run the ball methodically. And Rutgers is an absolutely great defense with very little offense. A lot of people are going to lay that 18.5. I don't think I can do that, but I can tell you that I think 43 is too high for this total. It's still out there. Everything else I've bet is kind of moved. Let me see if I can give you another one.
Right now I'm seeing 4.
I can give you.
Sorry about that.
I can give you a few.
Sure.
No, you're fine. Let me give you a few. Let's see here. Next one. You can't really go wrong playing it over in USC Washington. I know it's 76, but I felt fine playing over 76. It's going to be a race to 45. Neither team has a defense recently. We thought that Washington had a defense, but it got exploited really bad against Oregon. If Oregon doesn't go for all those 4th and 1s, I think that changes the complexion of the game, and that total flies way over. Their pass defense is kind of in shambles recently. I kind of feel comfortable with that one. There's an interesting note about ULM and Southern Miss. ULM, they changed to a freshman quarterback. He's throwing the ball 45 times a game all of a sudden. Southern Miss doesn't have a pass defense. ULM doesn't seem to have a defense. 56ers are still out there. I think that's fine on the over. I think all 3 of those are pretty good. I think that this board is kind of juicy, to be quite honest with you. I made a lot of bets. I felt pretty good about it. I feel pretty good every Wednesday, and then every Friday the anxiety kicks in. And then you're looking at how much you bet and, trying to figure out how you're going to tell the lady. No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
Always play within bankroll. But
yeah, absolutely.
I like all 3 of those for sure.
Awesome. So I'm looking at the board right now. Ohio State Rutgers, the total is at 42.5. You mentioned 43. I presume 42.5 is still at least a lean for you there.
Yeah. I think 43 is great. 42.5 is still fine. Let's see here. Yeah, it's still 43 at Jazz and Chris, but
okay.
They're juiced together. Oh, Circus 43 as well.
Okay.
So yeah, there's 43s out there.
Excellent. How good do you think Kyle McCord is, and how far can he lead this Buckeyes team?
I don't think he has to do a lot, which is really great. He has probably the best. He does have the best wide receiver corps in the country for sure. The only way that you're going to get into trouble with a guy like that is if he has to play from behind, which we haven't seen him do yet. If he gets into a shootout against somebody, this is kind of sad because we don't really know what he is still, week 9.
Right.
He really hasn't. The best team they've played so far is Maryland, and I have them like 37 on my power numbers. We're really not going to be able. We're not really going to be able to see, who he is. Maybe in the Maryland game, we saw glimpses of him struggling a little bit there for a minute, but for the most part, the Big Ten this year is so depleted of offense that we really don't know who he is or what he is. And we might not find out until, the playoff or, against Michigan, where he's going to be forced to put the ball in the air in some troublesome situations. I mean, they're a methodical offense for a reason. I mean, that's a pretty smart coaching staff to realize that they had a better than what we expected defense, and or they're going to play really bad offenses for the entire season. That being said, I think that he's pretty good for, a guy going out there and playing his first 8 games in a pretty tough situation. It's not a cakewalk to play at Michigan or at Ohio State with those kind of expectations, for sure. Yeah. Highly recruited guy, extremely highly recruited. I like what I see out of him. Okay, sure.
Yeah. Eddie, is there a college football team that you are looking to tail or fade at this point late in the season?
I mean, it's a really hard question to answer publicly because the fade teams, I kind of want to myself.
Sure.
But I can tell you that if you have a team that is no longer bowl eligible and is starting to mess around with their roster, I mean, that is something that you have to pay attention to and target as quickly as possible. I mean, there's a couple of teams out there that have already started doing it. You have to be cognizant of those teams. Then you also have to be extremely cognizant on the other end of non-Power 5 teams that are trying to make a bowl and have kind of flipped the switch. And, I mean, that's very, very important. People don't realize the importance of a bowl to a MAC team, a Sun Belt team. That is revenue that they absolutely need, can use. They can use for practices for that bowl season going into next year. Really improve just about everything about themselves. So those are the two things I really, really look forward to every single year. I think that November is probably the best month to bet college football if you're not just relying on a model. If you're doing subjective handicapping, you're going to find teams who have absolutely quit on the season, who have quit on a coach. Look for coaches that are going to be gone in 3 weeks. They probably care very, very little about what happens on the field, and their players are probably going to respond to that energy. So those are the things that I really look forward to.
That's great. I presume with the teams that are not going to make bowl eligibility, you're looking for things like, different players getting snaps on defense, right? Like not necessarily playing their starters. I guess that could happen on offense as well. Things like that, right? So like you kind of have to dig into the snap counts maybe. Is that like a way to find it?
Absolutely. Snap counts are available for every single person that wants to look at them. And if you see drastic changes to snap counts from starters, that is a huge red flag, and you need to take advantage of that as quickly as possible. It's not hard to do. I mean, it should be in everybody's playbook at this point.
Awesome. I get my snap counts from PFF. Is there like a free site that you can get snap counts?
I believe that if you were to just do team rankings and then go to the team, or also covers.com, if you go to stats and then you go to team stats and then go to player stats, it'll tell you there. So you can look at both those.
Interesting. Yeah, actually, I look at it at PFF, and that's nice, but that's a paid service. Luckily, nowadays, like it comes with the NFL Elite subscription, which I've been using for years. But I would recommend that as well because it's pretty easy to navigate. You also talked about
that site bothers me with their player rankings, though. I mean, I remember like 2 years ago they had a Georgia Southern defensive back ranked like the third best defensive back in college football. He was awful, and I remember betting unders based on the fact that they had this like one great defensive back. I only beat with PFF, but I mean, yeah. I think that cost me a few thousand, so I'm still upset. Like 10 years later, I don't know how long it's been.
Right. I mean, I think that those player grades aren't going to be perfect, and I don't think anyone there would tell you that they are. Especially if you're looking at like a defensive back from, like the Sun Belt or something, right? Like, I don't think they're adjusting for the fact that he plays in the Sun Belt.
Right.
Which, obviously, you have to make your own adjustments if that player ends up transferring to the Big Ten or the SEC, so on and so forth. But, yeah, I mean, personally, like, I don't know. I feel like I actually take their NFL grades pretty seriously. Maybe I shouldn't, but I've actually found it to be pretty good, especially when looking at like coverage and coverage grades. Actually, I look at the quarterback grades quite a bit. I don't as much for college. I actually just really like, it's just an easy way to scan through players on a defense, right? To figure out, hey, this guy's out. Well, how many snaps did he play if he's like a quarterback? Cornerback, right? Because that's players that don't have a lot of stats. I just find it easy to navigate. I don't look at the grades as much. So that's just my perspective with it. You also mentioned coaches that might not be there in 3 weeks. I mean, is Jimbo Fisher going to be one of those?
I mean, his buyout's too big. I don't think as much oil money as they have and everything like that, I don't think that people realize that his buyout is still like $48 million after this year. That is just an absorbent amount of money.
It is.
And, I mean, you're going to have to hire a new coach and pay him what you were paying Jimbo, right? I mean, like, nobody's going to take a pay cut to go there when the expectations are what they are there, which are unrealistic as hell, by the way. I mean, I don't really understand where Texas A&M boosters and fans think that this should be like a top 5 team every single year. They go out and spend a ton of money on NIL, but I mean, they're still playing probably the toughest schedule every single year. So what are your like realistic expectations? 9-3, 8-4? I mean, 8-4 isn't good enough for them, apparently. I don't think Jimbo Fisher in any way is a good coach, by the way. Don't get me wrong. I think he's awful. But, I mean, who are you going to replace him with? I mean, who's going to take that job that realistically can turn that program into a 10-win, 11-win team? I don't know if anybody can. I mean, they get good players for sure, good home field advantage. But, I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to have to beat Alabama. You're going to have to beat Ole Miss. You're going to have to beat Tennessee. I mean, it's crazy. LSU. I mean, good luck. It's just, I don't know. That's a tough spot for me. I don't really necessarily like that program, and I definitely don't like him as a coach, but I just think that it's just nuts the way that people treat him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think, wasn't it Kevin Sumlin that was there before that kind of went 8-4 every year? And
yeah, that
wasn't good enough. But,
right.
I mean, Jimbo's not going to get there.
I don't know what the realistic expectation is of a program, not just LSU. But let's just say Clemson, for example. I mean, they're having a bad year this year. I heard the call with Dabo Swinney the other night, which was hilarious. But I mean, like if you pay these coaches so much to the point where you can't fire them, you also can't fire them based on the fact that you're going to have to pay the next coach more. So They put themselves in this own bind. I mean, college football is stupid in the fact that these coaches make $11 million a year. So therefore, the fan base automatically expects them to win national championships. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's part of the magic of the sport, honestly. That's these unrealistic expectations. It's been interesting looking at Clemson, right? Because, they had a turnover fest and losing to Duke that opening game. Really should have beaten Florida State. Had some fluky numbers against NC State. I mean, I have them as the second best team in the ACC. And, 4-4 is probably not, it's not good, but, like, it's not like they're awful. Like, I just feel like they're not. What's that?
They have major Texas A&M problems. So Jimbo Fisher hires Petrino and doesn't let Petrino do his job. Obviously that offense is still really murky and still Jimbo influenced. I mean, they don't have a run game, but they still try to run every single down. And then Clemson brings in Riley, who does wonders the last 2 years at TCU, almost, takes them to the national championship game with this high-flying offense. And guess what? That offense is the same exact offense as last year. Just because they go out and hire an offensive coordinator and pay him a bunch of money, if the head coach won't allow him to change the offense, then the offense stays the same. Actually, Clemson was probably more effective running the ball last year than they were this year. And it's very clear to me that Clemson is very used to having Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, etc. Cade Klubnik is not yet that type of quarterback. He really doesn't have the arm strength or the accuracy to throw it 50 yards on a dime. If you were to tell me at the beginning of the season, just like Ohio State being the third best defense in the country, that Clemson would be 80th or whatever in an EPO on offense, you would have gotten my house there too, because they bring in this great offensive coordinator. They have all these weapons. The Klubnik's going to make this big jump. None of those things have happened. So how do you conclude that none of those things have happened? Well, they didn't change the offense. They just changed the name of the offensive coordinator.
Yeah. I mean, I thought Dabo was more of a CEO type, but it sounds like he really is getting in there, and that's why you see that they haven't reached their potential this year.
Right. I mean, they've played a little bit faster, but I mean, if this was Riley's offense, then they would be playing around top 15 pace. Instead, they're playing around 70th. So I don't see any change.
Yeah. Eddie, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the top of college football. You know, we came into the season with, Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama kind of near the top, Michigan after that. And a lot of those teams haven't really played up to their potential. The markets right now have Michigan and Georgia as co-favorites to win the national title. They have Florida State next, which I find pretty interesting, and Ohio State after that. How would you kind of handicap the national title race amongst those top teams?
It's like, I mean, to be quite honest with you, Ed, I probably look at these teams very little. I mean, just from a totals perspective, I'll make totals on them every single week, but I'm not really dying to play Georgia versus Missouri and Ohio. Right. I mean, it's for sides perspective. Like, I'm just, I mean, like, the SEC to me is, if you can find a good team to make a total on, you can make money on it every single year. But I mean, for the most part, I mean, the fact that, like, who has Georgia beaten, like, convincingly to where you're like, that is the best team in the nation, right? Like, right. I don't see it. I mean, Ohio State, I mean, they have one quality win, I think. So, I mean, like, I don't really know enough about these teams still. I mean, when you allow these cupcake schedules to take place, we really don't know that much about them. I mean, I know that Arizona is the most improved team in the country, and they're a fun team to back, compared to my power numbers from week 0. I know that Miami, Ohio, continues to win even without a quarterback. I mean, that kind of thing. But I mean, as far as like Georgia and stuff like that, I feel like I'm still blind to so many teams in this era, like Michigan. Michigan's just dominating people. Like, they're just winning every game by 40 points, and you have to respect that, right? But at the same time, it's like, at what point do you go, is this team really 35 points better than everybody? It's possible, but I'm not going to find out until the last week of the year. So it's tough. I don't know. It's really difficult.
Yeah, I mean, as good as Michigan has been, I still have some questions about that defense. I mean, I need to kind of see them do it at Penn State, where I know that offense doesn't seem particularly good right now, but I mean, personally, before you can believe in Michigan, I think you need to see them do it there, and then obviously against Ohio State at home at the end. So just as a local here, that's what I'm thinking about that team. Eddie, would love to move on. Sorry, go ahead.
Are you going to go to that game? Ohio State, Michigan? It's at home, right?
It is at home. Yeah, probably not. I kind of enjoy the TV experience where I'm not really like a big go to games kind of guy. I kind of like the TV experience and sitting around. So yeah, I mean, I used to go to a lot of games, and I think over the years, like, my schedule's gotten a lot busier on Saturdays, so I kind of prefer to, like, get all the work done in the morning and then kind of kick back without having to, run off to a tailgate or whatnot. So, but I mean, I'll hear it, whatever's going on over there, which is kind of fun. Yeah.
All right.
Eddie, would love to transition here a little bit and talk about the NBA. Maybe you can tell us your process for how you bet the NBA and how it is the same or maybe different from college football.
It's a little different. So yeah, like August 1st, when I'm done with college football numbers and ready to bet, I'll just start a notebook, start going through assistant changes, roster changes, start looking at summer league stats for the rookies and some of the lesser known players, get preseason numbers ready in case I decide to delve into that market. And then first week of NBA, I pretty much bet just based off the system changes and, kind of reading between the lines of what teams want to be and what they really are. And then after that, it's once every 5 games for each team. I'll go through every single box score that I've written, come up with a new base total based off of the week prior, make a new base total based off of injuries, tempo changes, situational changes, and make numbers based off of that. It's a lot more tedious than anything else that I do. College football, I really enjoy it. But NBA, it feels like, let's say January, I've probably made there's only 30 teams. I've probably made 50 numbers differently for those teams every single 5 games, it feels like. So
Okay.
I really enjoy the NBA. I love watching it more than any other sport. I go to a lot of Nuggets games, probably 20 a season. But, I mean, overall, the working process is definitely a handful. Mm-hmm. And unlike college football, where I really, really love the work, NBA, I love the work less, and I like watching the sport more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. With the NBA, is it more work simply because you are trying to delve into 5 box scores at a time and get information on that? Is it just...
There's just more box scores. I mean, every single team plays 4 games a week, 82 games a season. With college football, I have 133 teams, but I only have 12 for the entire season. I can get an entire 133 teams box scores done on a Sunday from 9 a.m. till 8 at night. Mm-hmm. With the NBA, like tonight, I'll get done with the games probably around 11 o'clock. It'll take me till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning to get all the box scores done, read the pressers for the after-game conference with the coaches, and that's the process every single day. So that's
right.
What it is.
Fascinating. What is kind of your watching of the teams? Like, I mean, I presume you can't watch every single game, so how do you pick and choose?
Yeah, so I don't watch games that I have money on. I know that sounds nuts, but I'll watch the end game. Like if it's close and I need, I have a sweat, then I'll watch that. But like, for instance, like tonight, I'm probably going to watch a lot of Portland and Detroit because I know very little about this Portland roster, and Scoot Henderson is somebody that I really don't know anything about other than, preseason, and so far he's looked atrocious. But, so I'm going to watch that game. I don't have any money involved there. I'm probably going to end up watching Cleveland and New York because I watched the game last night and I felt like New York was miles ahead of Cleveland. I want to see if Cleveland can bounce back. They have a terrible coach, so I'm going to see if he makes any adjustments or if it's just a runaway train again. The next couple of weeks is going to be very interesting, and I'm going to have to watch a lot of Philadelphia with their new roster, and I'm going to have to watch the Clippers and see how Harden, who I personally think is going to be a nightmare for this roster of the Clippers. I'm going to have to watch a lot of Clippers and a lot of Philly games to try and get a feel of what I'm going to do with them.
Excellent. But I presume kind of later in the season, it's more, well, at the beginning of the season, yes, you highlighted that there's certain changes you need to watch more for obvious reasons with the changes. What's it like later in the season when you have, like before the trade deadline, is it just kind of spot checking?
Later in the season, I like to watch for rotational changes. Good coaches will make rotational changes to their bench and play certain guys in situations a lot differently than bad coaches will. Mm-hmm. So I need to take advantage of what bad coaches will be doing poorly and what good coaches continue to do well. I mean, there's only a handful of really bad coaches in the NBA, but if I can nail those coaches for a week, that's a season. I mean,
Sure.
There was a time, even last year, I was downswinging really, really bad. And there was a coach, I'm not going to name because he's still around, but he was just very, very insistent on playing a very slow tempo and playing defense. And I was able to get myself out of that downswing based just off of that read for like a full solid month. I think they went 4-14 to the under. And I was like, it's like 9 units on my end. So like, it was just every single day, and the market never really catches up to those kind of things. Like, there's still going to be over money in the NBA on certain teams where they have an over roster but an under coach. So,
right. Do you bet do you bet sides and totals or mostly totals?
No, I bet sides and totals, just not as many sides.
Okay.
My sides are weak. They always have been. I mean, I kind of have to have like a really solid read on something, and it has to be a good situation for me to get involved on the sides. I'm always just basically on market with the sides, and I try to use 1.5 possessions as my discrepancy point, and it's very rare for me to find those spots without injury.
Right. Oh, so you're making a spread. You're looking for what, 1.5 point discrepancy? Is that what you meant?
No, I'm looking for 3-point discrepancy.
3. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
With so you talked about kind of the bad coaches and playing at a slower tempo. with that, it sounds like you're just trying to identify, like you're finding the total number of possessions in a game, looking when that potentially dips for a team, trying to bet the under on that. Is that the basic idea there?
Yeah, that's basically it. I'm also just looking for a coach. I mean, it's now a dead angle, so I can tell you, but McMillan in Atlanta, he refused to go out the gate running. Like, he wanted Trae Young to pass it to Capella. He wanted to set everything up. He wanted to call a lot of plays. There was absolutely no balance to that team whatsoever, and he was so bad as a coach of this particular unit that he wouldn't let them run until they got behind. So you could start the game. You could start the game, and if you had an overly, and let's say they were playing a very over team,
right?
You could start the game with, like, waiting for the first timeout to come when they were down by 8 points, and then play over with humongous positive EV.
Oh, wow.
So those kind of spots were, like, really special to me. I do bet live probably about January, once I have, like, a full read on teams.
Okay.
And that was a really, really, you get those kind of things every single year with bad coaches. Good coaches are never going to allow you to do that. Like, people like to bag on Kerr for Golden State, but, like, Kerr is very consistent. Like, he plays his bench minutes almost the same every single night. He makes sure that Steph gets his shots. He makes sure that Clay gets free-flowing motion going. I mean, like, he's kind of exceptional. Mike Brown, they play tonight, as I'm just thinking of those two. Those two are, like, I'm never going to find those kind of spots. But with a bad coach, like, you can make an entire season.
That's fascinating. What advice would you have for someone looking to start betting on the NBA?
Yeah, don't. Go out and have a life. Enjoy yourself. Go golfing. Get a girlfriend. Do anything else. I mean, like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm getting older, and, like, I've just seen, like, I hate to talk about it, but I mean, like, nobody else does, but I've just seen so many good handicappers go broke. And, like, it's really sad to me. Like, I've just seen guys that, like, I idolized, I talk to all the time, who just had tremendous bankrolls, and, like, if you allow yourself to, like, you can go broke no matter how good you are in this game. And, like, I just feel like, if you're betting NBA, then treat it like a hobby. Like, you don't have to be like me. You don't have to watch 5 hours of basketball a night. You don't have to, like, write down box scores, build models, all that stuff. Like, just go and have fun with your life, enjoy yourself, have a favorite team. My best friend that I go to games with, he's an exceptional guy, but, like, he literally bets $20 on every single Nuggets game he goes to on the opposition. Because if they lose, if the Nuggets lose, then he wins his $20. I think he bets whatever the cost of the ticket is. I think we're up to $50 tickets. He likes to sit second level, which drives me nuts. But nonetheless, so he bet $20 or $50, whatever it is, plus 8.5 with Utah the other night. And, the Nuggets win. He feels great about it. He lost $50. If the Nuggets lose, or they win by 7 or 6 or whatever, then he gets to keep it. That's a great life, I'm over there sweating the under, like a maniac. It's just like, I don't know. I just tell everybody, like, if you want to, like, get involved and you want to be a professional sports bettor, you need to realize that you're going to work a lot of weekends. You're going to work a lot of nights. There are going to be times where your work is tremendous and you absolutely have to pay somebody. And not many jobs like that out there. There's no job requirement in the world that I know of where you do tremendous work, variance runs against you, and you owe money at the end of the week. So I just like to keep things in perspective. However, if you are going to be a professional NBA bettor, I would probably say that you're going to want to start with rosters, and you're going to want to make sure that your numbers are absolutely, especially your sides, are, like, pretty in line with the market. And you're going to want to use different power ratings from different people to join a consensus. I'm not going to give you names, but you can, like, Google power numbers from different NBA sites. Use 5 or 6 of them, come to a consensus number, make sure that you're confident in that number, and then, just do kind of what everybody else does in the beginning. Don't be so results oriented. Make sure you're getting good closing line value. Make sure that your numbers are pretty fair to what the market holds. And, watch, I would say, if you're losing on a team, this is just general advice that I give to everybody on any sport. Don't focus on teams that you're winning money on. Focus on teams that you're losing money on. Watch those games, study those teams, and maybe take a day or two off from those teams. I had a season last year that was the first losing season in anything that I've ever done, and I'm very sloppy with record keeping, and now I have somebody that does it for me because of what took place. I lost 20 units on one team. I continually bet that team, whether it be sides, totals, whatever. I didn't realize that until probably mid-April. So just listen to my advice. If you're losing money on a team, realize it, go back, figure out what you're missing, if you're missing anything at all, and try to work your way up that way. If you're making money on a team and you have a great read on it, continue to make money on that team. That can go all year long. But study the teams that you don't know well more than the teams that you do know well.
You mentioned that the NBA can make very good handicappers go broke. Do you think there's something special about the NBA? I mean, I presume that you could say that about the NFL too. Or do you feel like there's something special about the NBA?
I think that the NBA, baseball, hockey, just in general, this is just my vibe. I think that if a sport is going every single day and you downswing, you lose your confidence, right? And confidence is key in anything that you're doing in life. There's been many times in the NBA where I knew internally I needed to take a day off. Like, you're going to have the 1-in-6 night. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, in the NBA, it happens. You're going to have overtimes. You're going to have endgame craziness, whatever. And I knew internally I needed to take a day off. I didn't take a day off. And I think that cycle continues for so many people. So, I mean, like, I kind of have like a steadfast rule nowadays with the NBA where I'm going to be very cognizant. Am I getting enough sleep? Am I betting, at the right times of the market? But yeah, I just think the NBA, baseball, and hockey, where you have the daily, college basketball maybe perhaps as well, I don't know. But it's just like you hit that downswing and you just can't get out of it mentally. And next thing you know, you're just throwing money out the window. And I've just seen it happen with so many people for so many years now. And I mean, it can happen in any sport, but I just feel like those daily sports are the ones that kind of can really cause some panic in the bankroll. And also, I mean, let's face it, we as humans want to get back that money lost immediately, right? Like, you had a bad night, a 1-6 night. There's 3 games on the board. Let's say it happens on a Wednesday. There's 3 games on the board on Thursday. You know internally that you probably need to either make sure that you have like an exceptional bet or two for that Thursday or take the day off. But as human beings, we want to get that money back right away. That's tilt in poker. Tilt can be prevalent in sports betting as well. So I think that I just see the tilt factor higher in the daily sports than any other sport or any other kind of thing. Right. So yeah, I guess that maybe is why.
Fascinating. Eddie, I wanted to ask you about the Denver Nuggets, kind of your hometown team that you've mentioned. I feel like we went from Denver being a very good team in the West before the playoffs last year. They win a championship. Jokic is amazing. And now we're talking about Denver as a dynasty, potential dynasty. So what's the truth about this team, and how do they kind of stack up with the contenders from the East?
Well, I mean, the West is much harder than the East this year. I mean, it's going to take a lot for them to pull it off, a back-to-back. I mean, they do have the best player on the planet for sure. They have probably the best starting 5 in the NBA, pound for pound. But their bench is pretty damn weak, and the depth is pretty bad. Also, Malone, he's a good coach, but he likes to play defense in a system that should probably be a little bit more free-flowing. That being said, I mean, I don't know if they're very worried about a 1 seed this year or playing all 82 games at full strength. They've got to get some time for some of these rookies coming off the bench. I would probably say that they're the best team in the West, but I really don't know with conviction. You know what I mean? Like, okay. It's very hard to bet against them, first of all. Like, I don't know too many people that are just elated to bet against Denver. But that being said, I'd probably put their chance at repeat as pretty low. I don't know what the market is for something like that. I don't pay attention to championship futures because usually there's not any value in it unless you have like a good read on a big dog. But Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's gonna come down to health, and it's gonna come down to depth, and they don't have a lot of depth, so they're gonna have to stay completely healthy like they were last year, and they don't have Bruce Brown this year, who was kind of like an elite sixth man for them. I wouldn't rate their chances as great, but I'm rooting for it.
Yeah, of course. Do you see Phoenix as the biggest competition out west, or another team?
I don't really like Phoenix's depth either. I mean, there's just, yeah, I mean, it's very tough to overpass Golden State. They've looked absolutely amazing the first 4 games of the season. And they're very, very deep this year compared to last year. I mean, I think that Chris Paul ended up being a pretty good asset for them coming off the bench. The Clippers are obviously going to be very interesting with Harden. I don't think that they're great. Yeah, I mean, there's just a handful of teams that are going to give Denver problems. But if they come to the playoffs healthy with home court advantage, that is a very, very difficult task for anybody to knock them off, for sure.
Awesome. Eddie, would love to end the question. Excuse me. Would love to end the show with a couple of non-sports questions. You're going to be held in captivity. What's that?
I love these. This is why I do this show. It's
awesome.
Great.
Awesome. You will be held in captivity for a year without the internet. However, you can bring one small item to help pass the time. What would you bring?
My God, that is a crazy good question. I have absolutely no. Can I bring my dog?
Sure.
I mean,
why would you bring your dog?
Right. Okay. I'm good there. Man, I guess. Oh wait, no internet. Can I bring a television?
Sure. Let's say you can bring a television. What would you like? You have to bring something to watch on the television.
I gotcha. I don't know. I would probably end up bringing. It's only one item though, right? I can't bring like a series of books.
Sure. Let's bring.
Oh, there you go. I'm bringing a series of books. I'm bringing absolutely. I don't know. My dad's always like wanting me to read these Lord of the Ring books. They're like 5,000 pages each, so I've never gotten into it. But if I'm on a deserted island, held in captivity, I'd probably get around to it. So I'd bring that series of books just to, finally be able to discuss what the hell is like all this stuff about.
Yeah, like the classic that so many people rave about. So your dad's a big fan, and you just haven't gotten around to it?
My dad legitimately reads 4 books a week. He would switches them out and finishes at least 2 or 3 books a week. It's absolutely fascinating to me.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So, have you always wanted to read Lord of the Rings, or is it just like a...
No, not really. But I mean, I feel like if I'm, stuck in captivity and I have 5,000 pages per book or whatever to read, that would pass the time pretty quick, right?
Yeah, it definitely.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to need something to keep my mind occupied. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Eddie, if you could be one historical figure, who would you be?
Oh, man. I mean, the first thing that jumps out at me is Martin Luther King, but I mean, that's really, really a tough one, right? I mean, there's just been so many wonderful people on this earth.
Sure.
I don't know. I mean, probably probably a civil rights movement leader or somebody that just gave back to the world a lot. I feel as sports bettors or people that spend a lot of time in their offices that don't give back to society, you get that guilty conscience, at least I do sometimes. I don't know. Just somebody that does a lot of charity work and spends a lot of time helping others. I don't know. Gandhi, Princess Diana, one of those kind of figures. I'll go with Martin Luther King. Why not? That's great.
Yeah, well, I mean, you also get shot at the end of your life, right? So that's
Yeah, but I wouldn't know it's coming. So that's that
true.
Helps, right?
Yeah, that's true for sure. If you're gonna go, you go quickly, without a lot of pain. I think that's it's the idea of giving back is fantastic. Is there? I mean, you did mention Gandhi and Princess Diana, but is there something about Martin Luther King that stands out in particular?
Yeah, I mean, I just think that he did a lot of good for so many people and brought hope to so many hopeless. So, I mean, that's outstanding. Yeah. There's not a lot of figures left in our society, especially in our political system in America, where you go, wow, that person is absolutely doing everything they can to make, everybody around them,
sure,
including an entire race of people better nowadays. It feels like everybody's just out to make money. and we don't ever look at the bigger picture. I'm in love with somebody who's a social worker who devotes her entire life to helping children.
Wow.
And in the meantime, I am screaming at a TV to please stop scoring, you know. It puts things in perspective from time to time. So, yeah.
Absolutely. Eddie Walls, thank you so much for your time and joining me on my podcast today. Can you please let everyone know where to find you on the internet?
Yeah, sure. You can find me on RAS Discord at Drink Your Milkshake. You can find me on Twitter at Walls_Edward, or maybe it's Edward_Walls. Either way, or Drink Your Milkshake on Twitter as well. Yeah, you just hit me up anywhere, man. I answer 100% of all DMs if I feel like the person is genuine and what they're asking about.
Awesome, yeah. And Eddie, you do tweet quite a bit, a lot of good insights with sports, obviously. There used to be a lot of humor, right? Or have I just missed that more recently? The Eddie Walls jokes.
I used to bet baseball, and every single day I had a winning day, I would give you a joke. And every day I lost, I gave you a song. And then I had a season that was so bad that I just turned into, like, you know, a DJ of weird music, and I felt guilty about it. So I don't bet baseball. That was like a few years ago. I stopped betting baseball just because I need time off. You know, I was actually pretty good at baseball. I'm considering doing totals again next year because I really enjoy watching baseball. But I mean, I do have at some point, you know, like duties around the house to be like a person in other people's lives, and
yeah,
so probably not. But yeah, either way, if you like the jokes, me and you, Ed, I'll send you one a week, buddy. No problem.
I will. If you send me a joke a week, I will retweet that. I feel like we need more sports and betting humor. We need to kind of combat the general negativity in sports betting Twitter, right? Or X, or whatever the heck we're calling it these days.
I told somebody the other day that, you know, I walk my dogs every time I take a bad loss, and now they weigh 4 pounds each. It's ridiculous. Mind you, they're only Shih Tzus, so they started off at 7, but, you know, it's still a fun little joke. You know, it's just, nobody knows they're Shih Tzus.
Yeah.
Anyways, thank you so much for having me, Ed, and I appreciate you so much, and feel free to reach out anytime.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
My name is Ed Fang, and I'm proud to be your host for the Football Analytics Show. Thank you so much for listening to that episode with Eddie Walls. I thought he gave out some tremendous advice and information for how to bet both college football and the NBA. Just a reminder, you can get my free sports betting email newsletter. Go to thepowerrank.com. Once again, my name is Ed Fang. Thanks for listening, and I will talk to you again soon.